And in a world where one job takes him across the country, he takes an unexpected detour to a small town where he learns, after running with the law, he gets sentenced to community service and is forced to stay in the small town against his will. While staying in the small town, he falls in love and learns small town values. So if you're one of our more experienced viewers, that sounds like Doc Hollywood. If you're one of our younger viewers, that is the plot of Cars. And Cars is Pixar's animation film 2006. And some days I think it's the lower end of the top tier of the Pixar films. The other days I feel like it's in the top half of the second tier films. And it just breaks my little heart to say second tier Pixar films, because I grew up in a time where every Pixar film came out is great. But in the most recent years, there's been some that have been very good, some have been good, and one that has been terrible. So, Cars. I think it's directed by John Lasseter, and I love John Lasseter. He directed Toy Story, and A Bug's Life, and Toy Story 2, and all those are fantastic movies. He is the face of Pixar. And he directed this movie, and I wish he got a great cast. Owen Wilson as Lightning McQueen, Paul Newman, Doc Hudson, Bonnie Hunt, Sally Carrera, Larry the Cable Guy, or hence Larry the Cable Car, is Mater. Cheech Marian from Cheech and Chong is Ramon. Tony Shalhoub, I've been watching Monk recently. He is Adrian Monk. He is fantastic. Who is Luigi? I want the Ferrari. Are you a famous Ferrari? George Carlin, one of the greatest comedians of all time, is the hippie Van Fillmore. Richard Petty, an amazing racer himself, plays Strip the King Weathers. And you got Michael Keaton. I love Michael Keaton. This is his first time in a Pixar film, and he plays Chick Hicks. I wish Pixar could make great movies, and they have, but even Peyton Manning throws an interception once in a while. And this is a very good Pixar movie, but it's not the greatest Pixar movie. And the problem with this movie stems from its protagonist, the main guy, Lightning McQueen. And he is this jerk. He is this race car that thinks he is the best in the land. He has stats to back him up, but it's not all about winning. There's a lot of other stuff. His manager Harvey's like, hey, I got some tickets to the big race. Who do you want me to give them to? Who's friends? He doesn't have any friends. His best friend is Mac. Mac is his trailer truck, which brings him to all the races. They have a good relationship, but he doesn't have any other friends other than that. He's like, I need to win the Piston Cup. My life's goal is to win the Piston Cup, this championship of the race. And he is one track, and he is unlikable. But over the course of the movie, kids, this is called character development, he learns these small town values, and he becomes a fantastic protagonist. He has this relationship where he gets lost, he gets trapped, he's on the interstate, he has to try to get to California for the big race, and he gets lost in radiator strings. He's scared, he's stressed, he's confused, and he wrecks the town. He ruins their one good road. And he gets judged to court. You got Doc Hudson, he's the judge, and he's like, I don't want anything to do with him. He's a race car, let him go. Race cars are the type that I do not like. Sally Carrera is this car who has this history, and you learn the history throughout the movie, that she was a big shot, she was a lawyer, and she fell in love with this small town and stayed there. She's like, no, we need this road. We need customers. We haven't had customers in a long time, and there'll be no customers that come if we don't have a road. So the doc's like, okay, fix the road, and then you're free to go. So he is in custody. He's friends with Mater, the tow truck, like Tow Mater, but without the tow. And Mater starts calling his friends. He starts hanging out with Mater. They go tractor tipping. I love tractor tipping. It's so fun. It's so different. This movie, all the humans are cars, and there's nobody else there. It's just a world of cars, and I think this is so interesting. There are parts I like about this movie a lot more. And the backbone of this movie is the relationship between the Doc Hudson and the Lightning McQueen character. You find out over the course of the film that Doc Hudson, the fabulous Hudson Hornet, was this great race car. He won 3 Piston Cups, and after getting to know Lightning McQueen better, Lightning McQueen starts to develop these small town values, and he learns to appreciate the life in the small town instead of the big city. And Doc Hudson trains him to be a racer. He trains him as the crew chief. This is a guy that's me, and now he learns the value of we. And at the end of this film, Lightning is about to win the big race, but Chick Hicks, who's always come in second until Lightning McQueen came, now he's coming in third. He does this dirty race move, and he crashes the king into the wall. The king flips out and has a total wreck. Well, this is how Doc's career ended, and everybody forgot about Doc. So Lightning McQueen stops short of the finish line, and he goes back, and he pushes the king over the finish line so the king can finish his last race. And although Chick Hicks wins the race, everybody's talking about the sportsmanship that Lightning McQueen had. And the king's like, you just lost the Piston Cup. You could have been the first rookie to win the Piston Cup. It's just another cup. Sportsmanship. And this makes McQueen redeemable. And I love the fact that, like all great sports movies, it doesn't matter who wins or loses. I watch Rocky, and I'm rooting for Rocky, but I know he's going to lose. But that persistence and that perseverance is what makes Rocky a great character. And Lightning McQueen learns that over the course of a film. He develops from a guy that I'm like, I hate this guy, I can't stand this guy, to, oh my gosh, I'm cheering for him, I hope he wins next time. And what pushes Lightning McQueen is he wants the sponsorship to Dynaco. He does not like Rusty's medicated bumper ointment. He doesn't like Rusty cars. But through spending time with Mater, he learns to appreciate Rusty cars for who they are, and it's not what you are on the outside, it's what you are on the inside. And these values make this a great movie that you can show your kids, but you can also take those lessons to you from yourself. And I love this because there's Sunday drives I took with my parents. We turned on the radio, Click and Clack, Car Talk. They voice Dusty and Rusty Rusties, his sponsors. And I just love their voices, and I love the inside adult jokes that this movie has. We should get him a pair of headlights. Race cars don't need headlights because the track is always lit. So is my brother, but he still needs headlights. And don't drive like my brother. Don't drive like my brother. Classic staples of Click and Clack's Car Talk. And the Pixar is so great for jokes and kids. I love Cars not as much as Incredibles or Toy Story or Monsters Inc. or most of Pixar's films between 95 and 2004. But Cars is still an enjoyable film that I own on Blu-ray and will pop in whenever I feel like it. Well, 5 years down the road, they made a sequel to Cars, and it was Cars 2. And Cars 2 is about Lightning McQueen. He won 4 Piston Cups. Now he is invited to the World Grand Prix. It's this race around the world in London and Italy and Tokyo. And you have all these racers, they want to find out who's the best racer. And they have dirt tracks, and they have gravel, and they have pavement. And you got Formula 1 cars, you got the stock cars, and you got all these different types of cars. Pixar has always said story comes first. And I believe that. But this time, it feels like the first draft. You have so many different plots going on. You have this World Grand Prix plot. You have the, Mater's a spy. Have him be mistaken for this American spy and go work with the British intelligence. You have redneck Mater, and how does he deal with these different cultures? Some of this works, some of it doesn't. I love the racing stuff with Lightning McQueen, but it is underserved. I think the spy car plot is so over the top and so ridiculous and something that might work on a television show, but it's supposed to be fun, exciting action, And that's the boring part. I think the heart of this movie is Mater trying to deal with these different cultures. When he is in Tokyo, this is a hilarious part of the movie. The problem is that's probably the only part of the movie that they executed well, and this is a movie that would work on paper, but when they're making the movie, it feels like they stuck to their guns on their first draft and they didn't tweak it. Pixar has tweaked movies in the past. They have delayed movies in the past because story comes first. And I love the part about Mater thinking it's pistachio ice cream when it's actually wasabi. And I love the part of Mater not knowing which restroom he should go into Japan. And I love the part with not knowing what button to push on the toilet. And that is what makes Cars 2 great. But that is the only thing that makes it great, and everything else falls flat. My favorite part of Cars was the relationship between Doc Hudson and Lightning McQueen. But Paul Newman sadly died in 2008, before Cars 2 went in production. So they wrote him off in style. They renamed the Piston Cup the Doc Hudson Piston Cup. And then he's gone. To replace him, you got Michael Caine, and I love Michael Caine in Secondhand Lions and as Alfred in the Dark Knight trilogy, but he is a stereotypical spy car, and that could have been awesome. I just think it wasn't done right. And I love Francesco Bernoulli, the Italian Formula One race car, and I think a movie between them, the rivalry, like a Rush-style Pixar rivalry sports movie with Lightning McQueen and Francesco Bernoulli, and if they would have just focused on that relationship, it would have been great. Lightning McQueen is the main character in the Cars movies, but they're like, let's have Mater be the main character, let's have him be in the spy thing, and that could have been a good secondary plot. Spy cars are really cool, you could do a lot of cool stuff with spy cars, but they had the focus. They had the Lightning McQueen stuff be secondary. All the characters in this movie seem one note and underwritten. They're like, well, we have sequel, we can do that to create new characters, but they created very shallow characters. They created this mystery of who is this villain, and it is so easy to solve, and it's like, well, that guy has to be the villain. And he's underwritten, and Cars 2. This is a movie I wish didn't exist, but it does. This movie wants to have a message, but it's never clear what its message is. We have all the racers using this alternative fuel, all in all. And they're great, and now they're not. And then the villain's this big, successful guy that's just money motivated, and do you like alternate fuels? Do you know it? Are you pro-capitalism, against capitalism? And this is the second biggest toy merchandise in the world, and you have this villain that could be considered anti-capitalism. I just don't understand it. Cars 2 is sadly the worst Pixar film. And I don't like that Pixar has a bad film, but they do, and this film is almost unwatchable. It's so bad. I laughed twice, and the first one has so many funny parts. And Cars 2 is almost a complete mess. It feels like a first draft that they didn't develop, and I'm really sad. I've even watched it a second and third time thinking I was probably in a bad mood. But no, sadly, Cars 2 is terrible. And I'd probably prefer to watch Geostorm again over Cars 2. Cars 2 should just be tracked down and destroyed every single copy of. Cars 2, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it a 2. I do not like Cars 2. But we needed Cars 2. Because without Cars 2, there would be no Cars 3. Cars 3 is a true sequel to Cars. Cars 3 is a movie that is not directed by John Lasseter like the first two, and they gave it to a guy named Brian Fee. And it starts off with Lightning McQueen being on the top of his game. Lightning McQueen has won 7 Piston Cups. But there was 3 movies, and in any of the movies we didn't see him win the Piston Cup. So how did he win all these Piston Cups? Spin-offs? So you got most of the cast returns from Cars 1, and then you add new faces. Christina Alonso as Cruz Ramirez. Chris Cooper is Smokey, Doc's mentor. Nathan Fillion, I love Nathan Fillion from Castle and from Firefly, and I am a huge Nathan Fillion fan. He plays Sterling. Armie Hammer, who played the Lone Ranger in that recent Lone Ranger movie, he did a good job as the Lone Ranger movie, but that's not the problem I have with that movie. He plays Jackson Storm, the young millennial card, the young rookie going to take the place of Lightning McQueen. And again, you bring Tom and Ray Magliozzi as Rusty and Dusty Rusties, Click and Clack. Tom died of a heart attack in 2004, but again, they use archival dialogue from the first movie, and he had a radio show, so they took stuff from that. You add these new characters, Cal Weathers and Bobby Swift, and you have this great camaraderie of these race cars. They're so happy they're racing their best buddy race cars. And you honor the sport of NASCAR. I am not a NASCAR guy, but there's so many cool behind-the-scenes stuff on the Blu-ray, which came out on Tuesday. And I love every Pixar Blu-ray, because Pixar puts effort in their Blu-rays. The Criterion Collection, I love those because they have so many special features. And I knew of this because I heard that they were going to feature legends of NASCAR. Junior Johnson plays Junior Midnight Moon. He was one of the first NASCAR drivers. He was one of these moonshiners. And he voices himself basically in car form. You got Louise Barnstorming Nash, named after Louise Smith, who was one of the first female NASCAR drivers. And you got Wendell Scott is there in the character of River Scott. He's not voiced by himself because he has sadly passed away, but he was one of the first black African-American NASCAR drivers, and he could not get the sponsorship, so he was like his own pit crew, and he was his own mechanic, and he is represented by a character named River Scott. So Lightning McQueen is at the top of his career. Lightning McQueen is in these Piston Cup races, but then slowly and surely, he's at the end of his career. You got these young guys. You got Jackson Storm. You got Danny Suarez. You got all these new racers that they're coming in, and they're winning racers. And one by one, all these guys, all these living legends, they drop out and they retire in the middle of the season. Lightning McQueen has his worst season ever, and it ends with him pushing himself too hard, and he crashes. People like, he's never gonna race again. Lightning McQueen's like, I'm done racing on my own terms. So he trains really hard to get back into racing form. He goes to the Rusty's Racing Center, where they find out that Rusty and Dusty have sold the company to Sterling. And he's like, new high-tech training gear. But it doesn't work for Lightning. He can't do what he wants to do. So he goes Rocky style, and he goes to all these old dirt tracks, which Doc raced on. And he learns, he goes back and he searches for himself, and he finds himself. And along the way, he runs into Doc's mentor, Smokey. And Smokey introduces to all these old guys. This is a classic sports movie, a classic movie of, I am too old for this. I love football, and it's really hard when you got a Brett Favre or a Peyton Manning, and they retire. It's hard to see your favorite actors, your favorite athletes get old. But you enjoyed watching them along their way, and there are always new guys. I love the NFL draft. I love seeing the new prospects. I love following their career. And every once in a while, you get a Doug Peterson, a Green Bay Packers backup quarterback that comes out and becomes a head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Every once in a while, you got these guys becoming coaches. And unlike Cars 2, Cars 3 does a great job of being two movies in one. It starts out with this athlete comeback story, and then it turns into this movie of Lightning McQueen having to train Cruz Ramirez when she was supposed to be training him, and having him make her a race car. And this film is gorgeous. When they're in the demolition derby, the mud on the tires, the cars sinking into the mud, and all the lighting and the reflection off these shiny hood surface. Cars 3 it looks fantastic. And it is a love letter to NASCAR. There are things that young fans and old fans of the Cars franchise will appreciate. Cars 3 is my favorite film in this franchise, and it is Pixar's return to form. It is not the best Pixar film, but it is a good, great, enjoyable film. They spent years from 1995 to 2004 making films that are 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10s. I don't think that is this level, but I enjoy Cars 3, and I am happy to own it on Blu-ray. I give it an 8.5 out of 10, and if you have kids or are you a NASCAR fan yourself, or just love this franchise and love Pixar, I would highly recommend picking this up on Blu-ray.